Alexander forgot his concession card on a train, a mistake which ended in his arrest and hospitalization. On January 22, 2017, Alexander Wilding forgot his concession card on a train, a mistake that led to his arrest and hospitalization. The police officer involved in the incident claimed that Mr. Wilding started the altercation, but Mr. Wilding had a different recollection of events. He ended up in the hospital with a shoulder injury and bruises all along his back and was charged with assaulting police. Mr. Wilding's experience is not unique, as police in South Australia have been accused of charging their alleged victims instead of facing court for their alleged assaults. Link. Childhood dementia will cut these sisters' lives short. Their parents want better respite services, not sympathy. Mandy and David McQuarters are parents to two daughters with childhood dementia due to Batten disease. Their daughters, Maya and Kensley, have a life expectancy ranging from 10 to mid-20s. The family says they had to fight for a diagnosis and are now advocating for a better understanding of the disease, respite options, and dedicated centers or hospices for children with life-limiting illnesses. Clinical trials to slow the progression of the disease offer hope to some Australians. The Batten Disease Support and Research Association also supports families through philanthropy and donations. Let's raise awareness and support families affected by rare diseases. Title: Russia's invasion of Ukraine causes decades of environmental damage. The war in Ukraine has not only claimed human lives and destroyed infrastructure, but it has also left a significant environmental impact. The natural habitat and wildlife have suffered, and it could take decades for the war-torn country to recover after the conflict ends. The war has burnt down forests, polluted soil, air and water with toxic chemicals, and left behind unexploded bombs that cover 40% of Ukraine's territory. Russian forces occupy nature reserves, national parks, and biosphere reserves, further worsening the environmental damage. The true extent of the impact will only be known when researchers can access affected areas. Hashtags. These scientists want to turn your watch into a disease alarm and stop the next pandemic. Australian scientists are aiming to stop the next pandemic or slow the spread of weaponized diseases by using artificial intelligence to detect the earliest signs of infection through wearable technology like smartwatches. Researchers at the University of South Australia have won a $1 million grant to study whether such technology can measure subtle changes in things like sleep and skin temperature to warn people within minutes if they are falling sick. The implications of this could be immense, as health authorities could immediately respond by quarantining people while infection rates are still low, breaking infection pathways early and preventing the spread of disease. Titans cruise to victory as Tigers Karoisai suffers broken jaw. The Wests Tigers have suffered a double injury blow as they went down 28-12 to the Gold Coast Titans. New South Wales hooker Api Karoisai suffered a broken jaw in the 15th minute, while halfback Luke Brooks sustained a hamstring injury. The Titans' Tino Fasuamaliaui was put on report for dangerous contact after the Karoisai incident and may face suspension, which could see teammate Moaki Fotuika replace him in the Queensland side. The injury-hit Blues are likely to recall South Sydney's Damien Cook as Karoisai's replacement for Game 2 of the Origin Series in Brisbane on June 21. Title: St Kilda claims victory over Swans as Lance Franklin reaches milestone goal. Description: St Kilda has secured a 14-point victory against Sydney Swans in a hard-fought match at the SCG. Despite Lance Franklin reaching his 350th match milestone with a career 1058th goal, the Saints proved too strong for the Swans, with Jack Sinclair's impressive 32 disposals and Callum Wilkie's defence being key factors in securing the victory. St Kilda will face Richmond at the MCG next, while the Swans will play Brisbane in Queensland. Hashtags. Couple threatened with eviction if they brought newborn home win racial discrimination case. A couple threatened with eviction if they brought their newborn baby into their rented Brisbane unit have won a racial discrimination case against their landlord. The tenants, who are of Kenyan origin, accused the husband and wife owners of the building of a campaign against them that included racial discrimination, surveillance, obstructing access and humiliating and offensive language. Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal member Jeremy Gordon ruled the male owner, and director of the property company that let out the property, discriminated against the tenants on the basis of pregnancy and race. Title: Victoria Cross recipient accused of directing killing of Imam in Afghanistan. Victoria Cross recipient Ben Robert Smith has been accused of directing the killing of an elderly man who was dragged from a mosque in Afghanistan. The incident occurred during a mission by the Australian Special Air Service, and was examined by the Brereton Inquiry into alleged war crimes. The inquiry found credible information that Australian soldiers killed the Imam while he was unarmed and under control, and recommended the incident be referred to war crimes investigators. Robert Smith was a patrol commander at the time, and a classified document seen by the ABC states he was directly involved in the killing. Link. Title: Indigenous Language School in New South Wales supports Voice to Parliament. The Gumbaynggirr Giyingarna Freedom School (GGFS), the first bilingual Indigenous language school in New South Wales, and the Bullari Merle Nyangan Aboriginal Corporation announced they will support a yes vote in the upcoming referendum for a voice to Parliament. The groups hope that the voice will enable the revitalisation and preservation of Indigenous languages and cultures. GGFS CEO Clark Webb emphasised that 250 to 300 languages once flourished across Australia, yet only 11 are considered strong today. The organisations believe the government must implement a truth-telling commission and treaties in supporting the voice, stating that trust and responsibility go hand in hand. $175 million flood levy confirmed for Bundaberg, but not all residents protected. After a decade of negotiations, a 1.7 km flood levy has finally been confirmed for the Bundaberg region in Queensland, following a 9.5 metres flood that damaged more than 4,000 homes in 2013. The Bundaberg East Levee, expected to cost almost $175 million, will be built parallel to the southern bank of the Burnett River to protect 600 homes and businesses in the east, south, and CBD suburbs of Bundaberg. However, some residents in the city's north, where dozens were helicoptered from their roofs in the 2013 disaster, will not be protected. The next steps are detailed design work and further consultation. Title: New South Wales Premier refuses to answer MP's questions amid serious criminal charges. The New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, has announced he will continue to refuse to answer questions from Kiama MP Gareth Ward in Parliament while he faces very serious criminal charges. Despite a committee warning against suspending members who face criminal charges, Mr Minns will take Ward's queries on notice only. The committee said governments should review the negative risks to the Parliament and constituents when deciding whether to suspend members. Mr Ward was suspended from the last Parliament in 2022 after being charged with historic sexual assault offences, and is set to face trial next year. Title: Council's bid to dismiss charges over lagoon drowning deaths rejected. A Queensland council's attempt to dismiss charges laid against it following the 2018 drowning deaths of a father and son at a public lagoon has been rejected by a magistrate. The Whitsunday Regional Council had argued the wrong legislation had been applied and that it was not responsible for the drowning deaths of Yuanwei Zhang and his 5-year-old son, who were pulled unconscious from the Airlie Beach Lagoon in the Whitsundays. However, the council's application to have the charges dropped on a technicality was dismissed by Magistrate Michelle Howard. The council is charged with breaching its obligations under the Work Safety and Health Act. Title: Tasmanian Council announces 12% rate hike, asks residents to suggest cuts to save costs. Huon Valley Council in southern Tasmania has approved a 12% rate hike for the next financial year to address debt levels amounting to nearly $3 million. The council has also invited residents to provide suggestions on which services they'd like to see cut to reduce their rate bill in the future. The increase is set to decrease to 8% in 2024-25 and 6% the following year when the council expects to return to surplus. Huon's rates have been consistently lower than most councils, as they sit on the 25th position out of Tasmania's 29 councils. Title: Adelaide mother speaks out about vaping addiction in her teenage daughters. An Adelaide mother and healthcare worker, Sarah Driver, has spoken out about the impact of vaping addiction on her two youngest children. The South Australian government is cracking down on the sale of e-cigarettes and introducing new licensing conditions on vaping products. Despite the sale of nicotine vapes being prohibited in SA, many vaping products still contain nicotine, leading to addiction in young people. The government will conduct a 2-month enforcement blitz to stop the illegal sale of nicotine vapes. Retailers will be required to show proof of their product's ingredients, and any licensed retailer found in breach of the conditions could face fines of up to $10,000. Cigarettes. Title: Sydney Council spends millions on blocking developments, potentially hindering affordable housing. North Sydney Council is spending millions of dollars in legal fees blocking new developments, including to protect Mayor Zoe Baker's views of the Harbour Bridge. A recent report from the New South Wales Productivity Commission found the city's most affluent suburbs must become higher and denser to combat the housing crisis. The council's actions could hinder affordable housing in the area, with the legal fees already exceeding their budget and costing ratepayers over $2 million. Experts stress that density must come with adequate infrastructure, but council concerns should not be dismissed. The government plans to review housing targets in areas like North Sydney. Title: 66 Aussies earning $14.5 million paid zero income tax in 2020-21. Newly released data from the Australian Taxation Office (ATO) shows that 66 people earning more than $1 million in the 2020-21 financial year paid no income tax. These 66 people earned an average of $14.5 million. This data has led to increasing public concern about tax loopholes and the ability of wealthy Australians to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. The ATO data also revealed that the majority of Australia's highest earners live in Sydney's eastern suburbs, with Double Bay having the greatest average taxable income at over $266,000. The Australia Institute has called for tax loopholes to be addressed to make the taxation system more progressive and fairer. Airline cancels service to Bathurst, future flights at risk. Fly Pelican has announced it is cancelling its service to Bathurst in New South Wales, citing financial difficulties. The move comes less than a year after a similar decision by Regional Express. Bathurst Airport will lose its last commercial operator on July 14, putting the future of flights between the city and Sydney at risk. The Bathurst Regional Council said it is looking for another airline to operate the route, though Bathurst Business Chamber President Paul Jones believes it will be challenging to find a new operator. Without flights into Bathurst, many visitors may not be able to attend major events. Former sheriff's deputy on trial for failing to intervene in U.S. school shooting. In a landmark case, former sheriff's deputy Scott Peterson is on trial for child neglect and culpable negligence for failing to protect students during a school shooting in Florida in 2018. Peterson, who was on duty as a school resource officer, is accused of not intervening during the mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, in which 17 people were killed and 17 more were wounded. Peterson's defense argues that he did everything he could with the limited information he had. Legal experts believe this trial could set legal precedents for law enforcement officers. Australia dominates India in World Test Championship final. Australia has gained the upper hand in the World Test Championship final against India, leading by 318 runs after day 2. With Steve Smith 121 and Travis Head 163 hitting centuries, Australia scored 469 in their first innings. India struggled to match their performance, with only Ravindra Jadeja 48 and Ajinkya Rahane 29 not out offering resistance. Nathan Lyon removed Jadeja in a crucial 2-over spell, leaving India with 5 wickets down for 151. Australia's Scott Boland bowled 2 maidens, causing India's Shubman Gill and Cheteshwar Pujara to lose their wickets. Luxury New South Wales resort temporarily closes due to access issues. Emirates Wolgan Resort, located in New South Wales' Wolgan Valley, has announced that it will temporarily close due to ongoing access issues caused by damage to a main access road during November. The resort, which boasts luxury amenities and is sometimes accessed by helicopter, will cease operations from June 9, 2023. Lithgow City Council said the reason for the closure was because gas supplies were unable to be delivered to the resort. Residents and businesses in Wolgan Valley have also faced major challenges in getting to and from the area. The closure will impact about 50 local workers and businesses. About 600 square kilometers of Ukraine's Kherson region reportedly underwater after dam destroyed. Ukraine's Kherson region is reportedly underwater after the collapse of the Novokharkovka Dam. The dam, which sits on the Dnipro River between Ukrainian and Russian-controlled territory, burst on Tuesday. Ukraine and Russia have blamed each other for the destruction. Nearly 2,000 people have been evacuated from the flooded area, with about 600 square kilometers of land now submerged. The Red Cross has warned that mines uprooted and dispersed by floodwaters surging downstream could pose a grave danger to civilians for decades to come. Both sides in the conflict are known to have used vast amounts of artillery shells and anti-tank mines. Title: 300 children rescued from deadly conditions at Sudanese orphanage. About 300 children were rescued from an orphanage in Sudan's capital after being trapped there while fighting raged outside. The evacuation came after 71 children died from hunger and illness in the facility since mid-April. The children, who were aged from 1 month to 15 years old, were relocated to a safer location elsewhere in the country after securing a safe corridor. The International Committee of the Red Cross helped with the evacuation, and the children have received medical checks and humanitarian support. The tragedy highlights the heavy toll inflicted on civilians since mid-April when clashes erupted between Sudan's military and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Note, while this story is important and of public interest, it does not have breaking news value as the publication date is in the future. Family of woman whose remains were found in Malaysia says mum's case remains open. The family of Annapurni Jenkins, an Adelaide woman who vanished in Malaysia more than 5 years ago, has secured a re-examination of the circumstances surrounding her disappearance in court. An inquest that followed the discovery of her partial remains on a construction site was unable to determine the cause of her death. Annapurni's son Greg has said that the family has successfully applied for the matter to be reopened via the court system. He hopes that this re-examination will bring them closer to judicial fairness and that justice will be served. Social media platforms face complaints about misleading crypto promotion. The European Consumer Group has made complaints to the European Commission and consumer authorities about the alleged role of social media platforms in promoting misleading crypto assets. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and Twitter could face regulatory action as a result of the complaints. The group alleges that advertisements promoting crypto assets on social media platforms are unfair commercial practices and expose consumers to the risk of losing large amounts of money. The BEUC has called on the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network to impose stricter advertising policies on crypto and prevent influencers from misleading consumers. NT politician Mark Turner expelled from Labour Party. Northern Territory member for Blaine Mark Turner has been expelled from the Labour Party for allegedly voting against a Labour Parliamentary Caucus decision. Territory Labour Party President Anthony Vines confirmed the party's decision not to renew Turner's party membership. Reasons for Turner's expulsion include voting contrary to a decision of the Parliamentary Labour Party and failure to pay his outstanding parliamentary levy. Turner said he was seeking legal advice about the decision and would operate as an independent for Blaine. The next NT election is in August 2024. South Korean inquiry to investigate 237 more foreign adoptions suspected to be fraudulent. South Korea's Truth and Reconciliation Commission is expanding its inquiry into foreign adoption fraud, investigating 237 more cases involving adoptees in 11 nations. Adoptees from these nations suspect their family origins were manipulated to expedite their adoptions in Europe and the US from 1960 to 1990. The Commission's investigation could allow adoptees to take legal action against agencies or the government. Most of the adoptees were registered by agencies as orphans found abandoned on the streets, making their roots difficult or impossible to trace. South Korea's government only required foreign adoptions to go through family courts in 2013. Link. ASEAN to hold first joint military exercise off Indonesia as South China Sea tensions simmer. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN) is set to hold its first ever joint military exercise in the South China Sea. The decision was taken at a meeting of military commanders in Indonesia, with the exercise taking place in the North Natuna Sea in September. The exercise will focus on strengthening ASEAN centrality and will not include any combat operations training. Tensions in the South China Sea have been high due to China's territorial claims, which have been disputed by several ASEAN members. The exercise comes as ASEAN pushes for a long-awaited maritime code of conduct with China. Title: CL0P ransomware syndicate hacks BBC, British Airways, Nova Scotia's government. The CL0P ransomware syndicate has announced that over hundreds of victims, including BBC, British Airways and Nova Scotia's government, have until June 14 to negotiate a ransom or risk having sensitive stolen data dumped online. The ransomware gang hacked a file transfer program called MoveIt, which is widely used by businesses to securely share files. Cybersecurity researchers say scores, if not hundreds of companies may have had sensitive data quietly exfiltrated. The CL0P is one of the world's most prolific cybercrime syndicates. Hashtags. 4 toddlers sustain life-threatening injuries from French knife attacker. 4 toddlers were critically injured in a knife attack in the French town of Annecy. The children, aged between 22 months and 3 years old, were at a nursery when the attack occurred. The perpetrator, a man in his 40s, was arrested by police. The motive for the attack is yet to be established. The children were taken to the hospital, with one child said to be in a critical condition. The police are investigating the incident. Imran Khan granted bail on new charges accusing him of link to murder. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail by the Islamabad High Court on new murder charges, preventing his arrest in that case for 2 weeks. Khan, who has denied almost 150 charges since his arrest on May 9, had travelled from his Lahore home to the capital to seek bail in the murder case and to extend his bail in over 12 other cases. Khan's initial arrest on corruption charges sparked violent protests by his supporters, raising concerns about the stability of the country. The military has ruled the country throughout its history, and political confrontations are often fought out in court. U.S. religious broadcaster and former presidential candidate Pat Robertson dies aged 93. Pat Robertson, the founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network, has passed away at the age of 93. Robertson had a significant impact on American politics, helping to make religion central to Republican Party politics. He ran for president in 1988 and pioneered the strategy of courting Iowa's network of evangelical Christian churches. Robertson also started the Christian Coalition, which became a major political force in the 1990s. His influence on both religion and politics in the U.S. was enormous, and he will be remembered as a familiar presence in American living rooms for over half a century. Trump asks for new trial in E. Jean Carroll sex abuse case. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has requested a new trial in the civil case against E. Jean Carroll. In the previous trial, the jury found Mr. Trump liable for sexually abusing and defaming the writer and awarded her $5 million in damages. Mr. Trump's lawyers deemed the $2.98 million awarded for the sexual abuse part of the verdict as excessive since the jury found that Ms. Carroll was not raped. They also said that the $4.02 million award for defamation was based upon pure speculation. Ms. Carroll's lawyer called Mr. Trump's arguments frivolous. Mr. Trump denies the allegations and has appealed the verdict.